All rise. The Kosovo Specialist Chambers is now in session.
Be seated, please. Madam Court Officer, please call the case.
Good morning, Your Honors. This is case KSC PC 2020-06, the Specialist Prosecutor versus Hashim Thaçi, Kadri Veseli, Recep Salini, and Jakub Krasniqi.
I note the accused are all present in court today. We will continue today hearing the evidence of prosecution witness W04752. Before we continue with the witness, the panel wishes to clarify a point in respect of an exhibit admitted yesterday. Yesterday, the SPO tendered SPOE 00225789 to SPOE 00225790, which consists of 2 pages, but only one of the pages, SPOE 00225789, was reflected as admitted on the record, which was not an omission in making the record by the court reporter, but was my mistake. The panel therefore clarifies that both pages of SPOE 00225789 to SPOE 00225790 were admitted as P1396. Now we'll continue with hearing the evidence of the prosecution witness, W04752. Madam Court Usher, please bring the witness in. Good morning, Mr. Zarapi. I trust that you had a restful night.
Good
morning. Yes, thank you.
I remind you to please try to answer the questions today clearly with short sentences. If you don't understand a question, feel free to ask counsel to repeat the question or tell them you don't understand and they will clarify. Also, please try to indicate the basis of your knowledge of facts and circumstances upon which you will be questioned. Please also speak into the microphone and wait 5 seconds before answering a question and speak at a slow pace for the interpreters to catch up. If you feel the need to take breaks, please make an indication and an accommodation will be made. I remind you that you are still under an obligation to tell the truth as stated by you in your solemn declaration. I also remind you that as advised yesterday, you are not required to answer a question that is incriminating unless and until the panel compels you to answer, and that if such a question arises, you or your assigned counsel may raise the issue to the panel, and we will proceed to determine whether or not, and under what circumstances, you might be compelled to answer. So we continue now with the special prosecution's questioning for you. Please give them your attention. Madam Prosecutor, you may continue.
Good morning.
Miano Jersey.
Good morning.
When we finished yesterday, we were looking at a document relating to finances, so I'd like to continue with one more, and that is SPOE 00225266. Can you please explain what this is?
Kjo është një kërkesë
This is a request from a logistics commander unit at the General Staff asking for means, technical means, to proceed with, to carry out his work.
Do you recognize the name of the officer?
Po,
Yes,
What was his role?
komandanti i kompanisë logjistikës.
he was the commander of the logistics company within the General Staff.
Can we scroll down slightly on the Albanian, please? And do you recognize who has approved this request?
Po,
Yes,
Can you please state who it is?
po është në shkrimi i Jakub.
yes, this is the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
Authority to do that?
Po,
Yes,
I'd like to tender the document, please.
Any objection?
Your Honor, the witness has not said he's seen this document before, and he is not the one who has prepared this document.
That is not an objection. The objection is overruled. SPOE 00225266 is admitted.
Your Honor, the document will receive exhibit number P01400. Classification is confidential.
Reclassify it as public.
Thank you.
Now, yesterday you described to us where the General Staff was based between November 98 and March 1999. And then I had been about to show a document, but we weren't able to locate it. I'd like to go back to that. The document is SPOE 00082284 for the English. And for the Albanian, it's SPOE 000822262. And we can please start on page 285 of both. And it can be broadcast. Thank you. And if we could scroll down slightly so that... yes, thank you. You can see the map in front of you here, and it has a legend underneath it. So I'd ask you to please confirm whether number 2 for Châteauray, 3 for Diviak, and 5 for Klečka are accurate. If we can scroll the map up slightly so that number 2 is visible as well. Thank you.
På.
Yes.
So we'll move, please, to page 287 in both. That's forward 2. Do you recognize the building in the photograph on the top?
På.
Yes, the seat of the command of Brigade 121.
Have you been there?
På.
Yes.
In the second photograph, do you recall that event?
På. Kurs.
Yes, this was in June when I assisted and explained, instructed how to prepare reports, line up units, salute.
And if we can scroll down to see the third photo on the page, please. Do you recognize the people in that photograph? And if so, could you please name them?
På.
Yes, I know them. We see in the photograph Jakub Krasniqi, Fatmir Limaj, and Ferhat Shala.
Can you indicate where in the photo each of those people are? So when we're looking at it, the person on the left, as we look at the photograph, who is that?
Personen të majtë.
On the left, we see Ferhat Shala.
Në qendër është Jakub Krasniqi.
In the center, Jakub Krasniqi, and on the right, Fatmir Limaj.
Do you know where that is?
Ne, nuk më kujtohet. Nuk.
No, I don't recall, I don't know.
Page 289, please. So starting with the photo on the top left, do you recognize what that building is?
Po.
Yes.
Can you please describe what it is, where it is, and who was based in it?
Kjo është shtëpia në
This is the house in the village of Divya, part of the general staff. Jakub Krasniqi, Rambuja, Sokoldo Bruna stayed in this house.
And we can see that there's another building, well, there's the white building, and then there's another building attached to it. What was there?
ajo ndërtesë nuk është e ngjitur.
It's not adjacent, it's slightly separated from this building. And the logistics were based there, the logistics company of the general staff.
The photo on the top right, do you recognize what that building is?
Po.
Yes. This is a building in the village of Divya, part of the general staff, where stayed with the operational and communications directorates.
The photograph under that, so the second one from top on the right, do you recognize that, and can you again describe it, please?
Po, njëjtë.
Yes. Same for the third building in the village of Divjak, part of the general staff, where the military police was stationed, which provided security for the general staff.
Do you recognize the building that's the second one from top on the left?
Ajo tani është shkatruar, po
It's now destroyed, but at the time it was functional, and the general staff reconnaissance units were based there, from what I can remember.
So going to the photographs at the bottom of the page, on the bottom left, do you recognize who's in that photograph?
po, është.
Yes, and this is Jakub Krasniqi.
Do you recall the event depicted in the photograph?
Kjo është në dhjetor të notët.
This is in December 98. I think. I don't recall exactly.
And the photograph on the bottom right, do you recognize the individuals in that photograph?
Po,
Yes.
So starting from the man nearest the camera or closest to us, could you please identify them?
po, I pari është.
The first one is the teacher. He's the senior officer, Brigade 121, the commander. The second one is Musi Ashari, the zone commander, or the communications, head of the communications at this time. Then we have Naim Maloko from the operational directorate.
Po shoh mirë fotograf.
I can't see clearly the next one.
Pastaj është.
Then we have Fatmir Lima, from what I remember, from what I can see.
Pastaj Jakub.
Then Jakub Krasniqi and Rambuy at the bottom.
So we can go to page 291, please. And the photograph down at the bottom of the page. Do you recognize what this building is, and can you again describe it, please?
Po,
Yes. This building is in the village Shatiri or Novosel in the mountains of Berisha. This place, this location, was assigned to the provisional government at the time.
So who would have been based there?
po zakonisht aty
This was usually used as a seat or basis for the provisional government. Hashim Thaçi and other members of the provisional government were there. We are speaking of the time after Rambouillet.
Is that when this building was first used?
jo, dhe më herë
No, it was used also before that when we staff members were there before we settled in Divjak.
Can we please go to page 294? The building depicted in the photographs on the top, do you recognize where that is?
Kjo sipas fotografisë.
Based on the photograph and the events at the time, this was in the village of Luzhnic.
Have you been there?
Po, në qesh.
Yes, in June 98.
Your Honor, I'd like to tender the document, please, and for the Albanian, I'll just tender the page range that matches the English excerpt. So that's 284 to 294. And it can be public.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection is heard. SPOE 00082284 to SPOE 00082294 is admitted.
Your Honors, that page range and its corresponding English translation will be assigned exhibit number P01401. It is currently classified as confidential. My understanding
Please
is...
reclassify as public.
Thank you. It will be reclassified.
So I'd like to look at a few more photographs now. The first one is SPOE 00229-683, and it can be public, it can be broadcast. Do you recognize the people in this photo? Can you please name them?
Po,
Yes.
No.
On the left hand side, it's me. In the middle is Thaçi, and on the right hand side, Recep Selimi.
Where was this photograph taken?
sa më kujtohet,
From what I can remember, it was taken in Shatiri.
Would that be in the building we looked at, the provisional government building?
po,
Yes.
Do you recall approximately when it was taken?
jo.
No, I don't. I don't recall.
Are you able to give an approximate time range or date?
Kjo mund të ketë të është diku në Ndorë.
Might have been sometime in November. Most probably November 98.
Can we please bring up, sorry, Your Honours, I'd like to tender that.
Any objection to the photo?
No objection.
None being heard. SPOE 00229-683 is admitted.
Your Honor, that photograph will receive exhibit number P01402, and it's currently classified as confidential.
Reclassify as public.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
And the next one, again, it can be broadcast and be classified as public. It is SPOE 00229689. Can you again please recognize the individuals or identify the individuals and the location?
Në këtë fotografi në anën e majtë,
On the left is Jakub Krasnitian, on the right Recep Selimi. I think this was taken in the same building, in the same place.
I'd like to tender that as well, please.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
None. SPOE 00229689 is admitted.
That photograph, Your Honor, will receive P01403. My understanding is that it can be reclassified to public.
Yes.
Thank you.
And the next one is SPOE 002299700. If you can again please identify the individuals and the location.
po, në
Yes. On the left, it's me. On the right, Recep Selimi. It's in the same place as the previous photographs.
And Your Honor, I'd like to tender that again, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection is heard. SPOE 002299700 is admitted and reclassified as public.
Your Honor, that photograph receive exhibit number P01404 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
The next one, which again can be public, is SPOE 002248887. If we can scroll down slightly, please. And witness, if you could again please identify the individuals and location.
në fotografi është në anën e
We see here on the left Jakub Krasnitian, on the right Rambuja.
fët nuk mund me qenë të njëjtin.
It seems it doesn't seem to be the same exact location as the previous photographs. I think this could be in the what we call the White House in Divjak.
There's a black item on the table in front of them. Can you identify what that is?
Kto që në tavolinë që vetë zeze është telefon.
The black device we see on the table is a satellite phone.
Your Honours, I'd like to tender that again, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection heard. SPOE 002248887 is admitted and reclassified as public.
Thank you, Your Honor. That photograph will receive exhibit number P01405, will be reclassified as public.
Thank you.
The next one, which again can be public, is SPOE 002248994. If you could please identify the individual and the location.
På.
Yes, it's Jakub Krasniqi. I think, again, this photograph is taken at the White House in Divjak.
And the black device on the table, could you explain what that is, please?
This too is a satellite phone.
I'd like to tender that, please.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
No objections are heard. SPOE 002248894 is admitted.
Your Honor, that photograph will receive exhibit number P01406. Current classification is confidential.
Reclassify as public.
Thank you.
And the final one in this series is SPOE 00229698. And again, it can be public and broadcast. Can you please identify the individuals and the location?
Na fotografia.
On this photograph, we see Recep Selimi on the left and Fatmi Limay on the right. The photograph was taken at the same house, as I explained with the first photographs in Shatiri.
So the provisional government building in Châteauray.
På, då är.
Yes.
Question of, it depends on the time. So the foundation for the question.
I was merely using the description that the witness had previously given of it being the provisional government building.
I believe that, if I may,
Yes, go ahead.
he specified a time period for when it was the provisional government building. So
I think he's referring to the building that he previously identified. It seems clear to me.
the building is fine. I just don't want it to be confused with that this is taken at the time of the provisional government. Thank you.
Understood. That's not the allegation, it's just identifying the building.
Thank you. And I'd like to tender this item.
No, I mean, relevance, obviously, but no, apart from that.
SPOE 00229698 is admitted and reclassified as public.
Your Honor, that photograph will receive exhibit number P01407 and will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I'd like to go back to the kind of chronology that we were doing yesterday and call up P00184. And if we can start briefly on the last page, just so that the witness can see it, and then back to the first page. Thank you. Well, the one before that, apologies. Witness, do you recognize this document? We can go back to the first page.
Po,
Yes.
Did you prepare this report?
po,
Yes.
What did you base it on?
është bazuar në raport
It is based on the reports of zone commanders.
And did you submit this report to someone?
çdo herë pas takimit në
Always after meetings with zone commanders and receiving reports from them, a comprehensive report would be drawn up and handed to deputy commander.
When you're referring to the deputy commander, could you please give the name, just because I believe there were two at a certain point?
po, në atë kohë më
Yes, at that time it was Jakub Krasniqi most of the time.
Can we please move to P00615? Do you recognize this document?
po,
Yes,
Is it one that you issued?
prej komandës, po.
from the command, yes.
So it identifies issues for reporting for the zone commanders, and I believe you've just answered in your last question, but what would you do with such reports that were received?
Po,
Yes,
Did you receive reports in response to this order?
po, nga komandë
yes, from zone commanders.
And what did you do with those reports?
si që shpjegova më herë,
As I explained earlier, upon receiving such reports, a summary report would be drawn up and sent to the deputy commander. The report would include the requests made by zone commanders, instructions on how those requests would be fulfilled, and so forth.
Would there ever be follow-up questions after you'd submitted a report?
Jo, në gjithnjë.
Not always. If anything was not clear or needed further explanation, that would have been addressed to me directly or to the commander.
By commander, are you referring to the relevant zone commander?
Po, për komandant.
Yes, to the relevant zone commanders, depending on the requests and needs.
I'd like to move, please, to P00621. Do you recognize this document, and could you please describe what it is?
Po,
Yes, I recognize it. It's my document signed by me. It bears the General Staff stamp. It's an order concerning the reporting from commanders and how they should report when they come to the headquarters and what their report should include.
So we can see that it's convening a meeting for the 29th of December, and I'd like to show you a further document from that date. SPOE 00227859, and again it can be broadcast. You can take a second to read it. Do you remember this meeting?
po, dakor.
Yes, I remember this meeting. It was a meeting with the directors of the General Staff.
And if we can move down slightly, it records you as giving a sort of a presentation on the General Staff structure and the functions of the different directorates. Do you recall doing that?
Po,
Yes,
Can we please move to page 2? At the top of the page, under the Intelligence Directorate, you're recorded as saying that it reports both to the Commander and the Chief of Staff. Can you explain what you meant by that?
kjo është
the Information Directorate at the time was supposed to report not only to Commander but also to the Chief of Staff on the events, what had happened, so that they're brought to the knowledge of the chief of staff. When I said information, certain reports can be taken from the chief of staff, although most of the reports came from the zone commanders. If there was need for information, the chief of staff had to be informed so that he could further inform the public opinion or the units.
Would these reports from the Intelligence Directorate be oral or in writing?
It depended on the situation. Mostly they were oral.
And do you know whether you and the commander received the exact same information, or do you know what the reports, the substance of the reports going to the commander were?
At the time, as far as I remember, both sides would take the same information, but I was personally mostly interested in information of military nature.
And when it's referring to the commander here, would that be referring to whoever was in Kosovo, such as the deputy commander, or is it referring to the commander in Albania?
To both the commander in Albania and the commander in Kosovo, but mostly to the one in Kosovo because that commander would receive the report directly.
We can go back to page 1, please. And slightly further down on the Albanian. So it mentions that there were 3 units directly under the general staff. Could you please describe what those units were?
The subordinate units of the general staff were the reconnaissance battalion, the military police at the general staff, and the logistics company of the general staff. These are the 3 subordinate units of the general staff.
So starting with the logistics, could you please explain its functions and mention who the commander was, although I think you mentioned him already in the testimony.
The logistics unit at the general staff had as a task to support and assist the general staff in terms of food, clothing, shelter, and so forth. I just mentioned the key aspects. The commander of this unit was Idris Husseini.
And was this the unit that was based in the building we saw just adjacent to the White House?
Yes.
So we'll take the military police next. Could you please describe its functions?
The military police at the general staff had as a task to provide security for the general staff, to escort the general staff through its movements in the territory of Kosovo. So its main task was to provide security and safety for the general staff. A commander of this unit was Ramis Sertoli.
How had the members of the unit been selected?
Antarët e njësitit
Members of the military police unit, you mean?
Military police unit.
njësitë policisë ushtarake është
The members of this unit were selected from all the units, from all the zones, those who were distinguished as soldiers and fighters and were with best characteristics.
Were they nominated by the zones, or who made the selection?
zakonisht shtabi ka kërkuar nga
The staff would ask the zone commanders because they knew the soldiers better, and then they would send these soldiers to this unit.
Who in the staff would make that request?
atëre mbrat e shtabit
You mean who observed them or supervised them? I think that's what you mean. It was the Directorate of Military Police that oversaw this activity, trained them, prepared them. So in this respect, it was the Directorate of Military Police.
On the reconnaissance unit, could you please describe its functions? Well, we'll start with its functions.
njësia e vëzhgimit
The reconnaissance unit at the General Staff observed the territory, monitored the movements of the Serb forces or the enemy forces. So this was its task to monitor those movements, to collect information, to identify the forces, the weapons used, and the aim of the enemy forces. And this information was then submitted to the Directorate of Operations at the General Staff, and based on that information, then plans were made. This unit was stationed in several locations. One company was with the General Staff in Divjak, one in Vraništ, and one company in the direction of Shar Mountains, that is in Budakov village.
Who were the commanders of the different companies and the overall commander of the reconnaissance unit?
komandantët e njësi
The commanders of the companies of this unit were Company 1, Commander Guri. Ayvaz Berisha was commander of second company, which was at the staff, and Afrin Basha was commander of the third company, which was in Budakov. This unit came to existence and started to develop from December. Later on, it was taken by Yetullah Chari. The interpreter notes that she did not hear the name of the first commander.
So you said that later on it was taken by Yetullah Chari. Was there a commander before that? We just missed it on interpretation, if you don't mind repeating.
Para Yetullah Çarit,
Before Yetullah Chari, it was Mahir Hassani.
Is the reconnaissance unit the same as, or sometimes referred to as, a rapid response unit?
Listen, at the time, the reconnaissance units that we had at the General Staff, at zones or brigades, these units were used for reconnaissance and for rapid intervention. If there was need to intervene rapidly in certain situations to help the units on the front line. So in such situations, not only reconnaissance units, but also military police would assist units that were at the General Staff or with the zones and brigades.
Thank you. By March 99, approximately how many soldiers would have been attached directly to the General Staff?
meni sidvarts që kemi pas.
With the subordinate units that we had there, although not all of them were concentrated at Divjak, I think was 300.
And, Your Honour, I'd like to tender the document we've been discussing. It's SPOE 00227859.
There were 2 pages. Would that also include 860?
Yes, and, well, actually the full page range, and I can show the witness the third page as well if you prefer. There are 3 pages in total.
Could you use the entire number then?
SPOE 00227859 to SPOE 00227861.
All right. Any objection?
We do have an objection to the extent that the last 2 pages are being tendered. Can I just check with 1 second? It's actually the last page we object to that has no connection to what was discussed with the witness, and it actually deals with a different topic.
We can show the third page. It's a continuation of the same meeting. Could we please go to the third page? So you can see there it says continuing the meeting from the morning session.
Same unit. Is there some reason that differentiates?
It's a different topic, and I think if the witness knows something about it, it should be put to him. But
Witness, are you, it refers.
Please do that.
It refers there to requesting a report in relation to the activity of Tahir Zeme. Are you familiar with that topic?
Po,
Yes.
Was it part of discussions as well?
po kemi diskutuar.
Yes, it was.
So, Your Honour, I'd like to tender the document in full, please.
No, I have no objection, sorry.
All right. Any other?
Your Honour, we reserve our position on the seizure of the documents.
That objection's overruled. So SPOE 00227859 to SPOE 00227861 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Your Honor, the document and its corresponding English translation will be assigned exhibit number P01408 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honour, was the court intending to take a short break at 10 o'clock? We can do that now.
We'll give, Mr. Witness, we'll give you a 10-minute break at this time, so you may go with the court usher. We're adjourned for 10 minutes.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated. Please bring the witness in. All right, Mr. Zarapi, we continue with the SBO's questions. Go ahead, Madam Prosecutor.
Thank you. So we had just been discussing some of the units directly under the general staff, and I would like to bring up P00891. Do you recognize this document?
Po,
Yes.
What units does it relate to?
kjo drejt pas drejti bëhet për njësinë është.
This is directly referring to the reconnaissance unit.
And it's titled as a clarification. Was there a reason you issued this?
Po,
Yes. Initially, the commanders didn't know how to report, who was reporting to whom. So there was a need to clearly indicate how they should proceed and who should they report to.
Can we please bring up P00901? And we'll be starting on page 6958. So it's the correct page in the English. I'm just wondering if the Albanian is the same. I think it would be approximately page 5, if that assists. Yes, thank you. Do you recognize the names there and what unit they belong to?
Okay, përkisin kompanisë
They belong to the company in Budakova. The commander of that unit was Afrin Basha, who's on top under number 1 on this list.
We can go please to 6962. So it's correct in the English, and we might need to go one further in the Albanian. Yes, thank you. Again, do you recognize these names and what unit they belong to?
togu pari,
First squad, first platoon of the second company in Budakova. I know some of the names.
And the following page, please, on each. Again, do you recognize some of these names and the unit they belong to?
Second platoon from the same company. I recognize some names.
Can we go, please, to 6967? And we'll probably be one page further again in the Albanian. It records there you having issued an instruction that the special unit has no right to arrest anybody. Do you recall giving that instruction?
Po.
Yes.
What was the reason that you gave it?
për arsye se vëni
The reason is because this reconnaissance or rapid response unit is not a unit supposed to deal with arrests. This was used on one occasion in this unit by the Inspector General in a village in the territory of Pashtric Zone, and that was the reason why this order was issued.
By the Inspector General, are you referring to Recep Salimi?
po.
Yes.
Were the people armed or unarmed that were arrested?
Jo, nuk është çështje, nuk po arrestimi aty, po është
They were not arrested, but the disciplinary measure was issued as a result of disciplinary issues that had occurred in that village, and on which occasion this unit was used to enforce that. And it should not have been the case, because if persons who are to be arrested or who are to be issued disciplinary measures and who are armed or oppose an armed resistance, then you can make use of this unit, but not in other cases. In other cases, you have the military police who can be used for that purpose, from the zone commander or the battalion commander and further down.
And this instruction refers to arrest. So what was the disciplinary measure that the unit was used to enforce? Was it some form of isolation?
për këtë njësi,
If we're talking about the unit itself, it's a different thing, because they did not have the right to isolate people either. If the individuals or groups against whom measures were to be enforced were armed or were opposing an armed resistance, then one could make use of this unit, but not in other circumstances.
We can move, please, to U0007325. Do you recognize the names of the individuals who've compiled this report?
po,
Yes.
What unit did they belong to?
një përkesim
They belong to the company in Budakova, the reconnaissance unit within the general staff.
Now, the report relates to soldiers of the special unit having left the building without authorization of the commander. And then at the end it notes that, quote, the soldiers were warned that if they cause even a smaller problem than this, there will be a transfer to the prison of the general staff, end quote. Why would the general staff prison have been used in these circumstances?
në të rrethana është se
In these circumstances, it is because it's a unit within the general staff. Then any disciplinary violation or failure to fulfill their duties would result in measures taken by the legal department within the general staff. If a person is detained for the purpose of preventing violations. So usually people could be held for 2 or 3 days in order to take measures against their soldiers. If the violation would be more serious, then the person would be sent to the legal department, the general staff.
So for people who did not fall directly under the general staff, where would they be detained if it was necessary for disciplinary reasons?
Varësisht për e saj,
It depended. Usually such measures were taken in operational zones. At brigade level, whereas at the general staff, we usually had soldiers who made mistakes and were sent there. Members of the units of the general staff or members of the general staff. I don't know further who was there. If there was any civilian, I believe it might have been Serbs who would have entered the territory or found caught in the territory, but nothing else.
So would each of the brigades have a room then that they could use for these purposes?
çdo brigadë ka pas nga
Each brigade had detention rooms to enforce disciplinary measures resulting in their unit, because they knew better their own territory and knew how to proceed.
Your Honour, I'd like to tender this document, please.
Any objection?
No objection.
No objection being heard. U0007325 is admitted.
Your Honor, the document will receive, and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01409. Current classification is confidential.
And I think this one should stay confidential just because of the individuals named.
All right, it will remain confidential at this time.
Thank you.
So we'll return to the chronology, and we're in January 1999. I'd like to look, please, at P01105. Do you recognize the stamp and signature on this document?
po,
Yes. It's the stamp of the general staff and the signature of Jakub Kresnici.
Now, it's an order for Blerim Kuchi to report to the general staff. Do you recall this event?
po,
Yes.
And were you present when Blerim Kuchi did report to the staff?
po, kur kanë
Yes, when he came together, but Blerim Kushi, that is, as the zone commander and the brigade commander.
Can you give their names just for clarity?
po komandanti i zonës ka qenë
The zone commander was Ekrem Reja, and the brigade commander was Najmuddin Kastarati.
And you recall what happened when they reported to the staff?
Csak benned kol,
From what I remember at the time, when they arrived, the zone commander, Commander Durini, came with me in the operational directorate office. We discussed operational matters. Najmuddin Kasrati went to Brigade 121 to discuss their related matters, and Blerim Kuchi was left in the command.
Who was in the command with Laram Kuchi?
onat ko ishte
Jakub Krasnici, Recep Selimi, and Fatmir Lima.
Was there a decision to detain Blerim Kuchi?
po pasaj
Yes, after this, a decision was issued to detain him.
So we'll move please to P01352. And we'll go to page 2. Now, this is an agenda for a meeting on the 5th of January. Did you attend that meeting?
po
Yes,
Do you recall Radio Kosovo and mobilization of vehicles being discussed as described there on the agenda?
po
yes.
Can we go please to 1D00071? So slightly up in the Albanian, in the first paragraph it says, the General Staff at its meeting of 5 January 1999 issued the following order. Is that the meeting we just looked at?
po
Yes,
And we saw that one of the agenda items was the mobilization of vehicles. Is that what this order relates to?
po
yes.
Who is this document signed by? Can we scroll down slightly in the Albanian just to see the signature block?
dokumenti është I komandantit zonë.
The document is from the Pashtik Operational Zone Commander, but signed by his deputy Suleiman Kolchaku.
Now, we saw that one of the other agenda items related to Radio Kosovo. Can we please call up SPOE 00225251? Do you recognize the stamp and signature?
Po,
Yes.
është e shtabit përgjithshëm.
Is the general staff stamp and the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
And it relates to finishing the structure and securing the premises for Radio Kosovo. Was that part of what had been discussed at the meeting?
Po,
Yes.
Why is it addressed to the Pastric zone to implement?
për arsye se
Because the location of Radio Free Kosovo would be in Pashtric zone, under the command and responsibility of this zone. As a result, they were instructed to assign soldiers to the various tasks and the bunker where Radio Kosovo Elir would broadcast from.
Can we tender this item, please?
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
Then SPOE 00225251 is admitted.
Your Honor, the document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01410. Current classification is confidential.
It can be public.
Reclassified as public, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. It will be reclassified.
Can we please bring up SPOE 00225240? Now, you've previously mentioned, and I'm referring here to SPO Part 11, pages 10 to 11, that Naim Maloko was transferred to the Dukagini zone in response to a request. Does this document relate to that?
po,
Yes. It relates to the request from the Dukagini zone commander. And then following a conversation we had with Mr. Maloku, where we discussed this matter, he expressed his willingness to go there, and he was as a result transferred temporarily there to assist the Dukagini zone.
Do you recognize the stamp and signature?
po,
Yes, the stamp is of the general staff and the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
And was approval from the commander, or in this case the deputy commander, needed for transferring someone from general staff?
po,
Yes.
Your Honor, I'd like to tender this document, please.
Any objection? None heard. SPOE 00225240 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Thank you, Your Honor. The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01411 and it will be reclassified to public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, can we please bring up P00624? Do you recognize this document and do you recall having issued it?
Po.
Yes.
And you addressed it to the operational zones to be implemented?
Tojo është drejtuar të gjithë
This is sent to all zones of the Kosovo Liberation Army.
vetëm
Not only to the operational directorates, but in general to all the zones, all the units. To assign in particular handguns, and then mortars, heavy machine guns. So the operators of these heavy weaponry must have handguns to defend themselves and to be safer. They were entitled to be assigned these. In some locations, some had more. Some people who didn't need them, handguns that is, didn't had them, and others who needed them didn't have them. So there was a need to clarify and to reassign these handguns to people who are operating what we refer to collective heavy weaponry.
Thank you. And it's dated the 4th of January and has reference number 92/111. Can we please bring up K053-5895 and go to page 2 in both English and Albanian? So we can see there in the first paragraph, it states that it's based on General Staff Order 92/111 of the 4th of January. That's the order we just looked at, correct?
po.
Yes. Now this concerns the implementation of that order lower down on operational zone level.
And do you recognize who has signed this order?
Po.
Yes, this document too was signed by the Deputy Commander of the Pastrik Operational Zone, Suleiman Kolchaku.
And down on the bottom left, we can see that it was prepared in 6 copies to the brigade commands and to the archive. Does that mean that a copy of this order was sent to each of the brigades?
Po, Simba.
Yes, according to this document, every brigade and every unit in operational zones received 1 copy.
Dhe arkivit të
And copy was sent to the archives of the operational zone, that is, to the command of the operational zone, in this case, the Pastrik operational zone.
Now, this order is dated the 10th of January, and it has reference number 2/1-28. Can we please bring up K053-5489, and we can stay on page 1 to start. Do you recognize what this is and what it was used for?
Kjo është doktor.
This is a certificate of receipt certifying that the brigades that has signed the document have received the order.
And we can see that the order being referred to here is reference 2-1-28 from the 10th of January. So that's the order that we've just looked at from the zone brigade that's now gone from the general staff to the zone brigade, to the zone command to the brigades. Is that how it worked? For the distribution of orders?
Johnny.
Listen. No, this document certifies that the order went from the command of the zone to the brigades. The general staff sent it to the command of the zone, and the zone then transmitted the order lower down. So once the zone received the order, they forwarded it to the brigades. And this document certifies that the brigades listed therein in this document received the order from the command of the Pashtik operational zone.
Thank you, that's clear. So this records orders going from the zone command to the brigades. Was there a similar system, or what was the system for recording orders going from the general staff to the zone command?
Njëjtë ka qenë.
It was the same, what was sent from the staff to the zones. We saw that earlier in the order from the staff that was sent to the operational zone commands, and then the commands forwarded this order lower down.
Would the zone commands typically sign for orders that they're receiving from the general staff as well?
Varësisht ato që është kërkuar.
Depending on what was requested, but usually the protocol was followed. At the time, we could not use all the administrative procedures because we didn't have time for that.
We can see here on the document that it's signed for by 5 brigades. When was the 126 Brigade established in Pastrik?
Brigada është formuar.
This brigade was formed at the same time with other brigades. Probably at the time this order was sent, this order was submitted to their hands, or was received by the commanders during a meeting. Maybe at that particular meeting, the commander of Brigade 121 was not present, and that's why his signature does not appear on this document. This is from what I can see on this document.
And this document, it lists Brigade 121, 122, 123, 124, and 125. When was Brigade 126 established in the Pastrik zone?
Later on. That brigade was created later on.
Do you recall approximately when?
Mikrofonit janarit.
End of January, beginning of February, around that time.
So we can take one more, and please bring up P00622. Do you recognize this document, and did you issue it? You might need to please go to the second page as well for the witness.
På? No.
Yes, it's an order, my order, signed by me with the stamp of General Staff.
We can see that it relates to sniper rifles, and who was it addressed to, or who was it sent to?
Kjo është drejtuar zona.
Two operational zones. It doesn't concern just one sniper rifle, but all sniper rifles, especially those with optical device. It would be of utmost importance to train people using such weapons, and also to train them how to maintain these weapons.
Now, the reference number on this document is 87/111, and the date is 29 December 1998. Can we please bring up K053-5895 again, and this time stay on page 1. And in the first paragraph, we can see it's based on General Staff Order 87/111 of 29 December. So that's the order we just looked at. Do you recognize who has signed this document?
Po, kanë shkruar.
Yes, by the commander of Pashtric Zone, Ekrem Reja.
And who is this document sent to?
Ky dokument
This document was sent by the zone commander to the brigade commanders.
The date of this document is the 3rd of January, and the reference number is 2/1-18. Can we please bring up K053-5489 again, and this time go to page 2. Now, is this the same type of document we looked at previously, where the brigades are signing for receipt of an order?
Po.
Yes.
And we can see that here they're referring to an order from the 3rd of January with the reference 2-1/18. So that's the order we just looked at. Can we now please go slowly through the remaining pages of this document for the witness to just confirm whether the remaining pages are also the same type of document as this? We can continue through them. Thank you. So are these pages that we just looked at all examples of brigades signing for receipt of orders from the zone command?
Po.
Yes.
Your Honours, I'd like to tender this document, which is K053-5489. And I'd also like to tender the intermediate zone commander orders we looked at, which were contained in K053-5895. And they can both be public.
Any objection? None heard. K053-5489. Both pages, is that correct, Councillor?
Yes, that's correct.
And K053-5895, also both pages? Or is that just
All pages.
all pages? Are admitted and both will be reclassified as public.
Just to clarify, the ERN document with 2 pages has ERN K053-5095-K053-5896. It's a 2-page document. And the one with the 6 pages is K053-5489 to K053-5494.
So yes, the second one is correct. The first one is K053-5895.
Yes, to 5896.
Correct, thank you.
Thank you. The first one, 5895 to 5896, and its English translation, will receive exhibit number P01412, and it will be reclassified as public. And the second one, with the range of 5489 to 5494, and its English translation, will receive exhibit number P01412, and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam
And Your
Pres-
Honour, we could take a break now if that
Yes,
suits the
thank
court.
you. Witness will take our scheduled morning break for a half an hour at this time. You may leave the courtroom with the court usher. Remember not to speak with anyone.
Your Honor, if I can make a quick correction, I gave 2 same exhibit numbers for both documents. The last document, 5489 to 5494, will receive exhibit number P01413. Thank you.
Thank you. We're adjourned until 11:30.
All rise. All rise.
Be seated, please. Mr. Roberts, you had a...
Yes, Your Honour, I can do it at the end of the session if that's easier, or now, whichever. It relates to not this witness, the next one, so I just wish to not delay Your Honours at all. So it should only take 2 minutes, but I also there may well be the need for a representative of the registry if they wish to respond on the matter.
We'll take care of this prior to the end of today, after we're finished with this witness for today.
Perfect. Thanks, Your Honour.
Excuse me. You can bring the witness in. All right, Mr. Zarapi, we will continue with the questions from the Special Prosecutor's Office. Go ahead, Madam Prosecutor.
Thank you. Can we please bring up SPOE 00228820? No. Do you recognize the stamp and signature on this document?
Po,
Yes, it's the stamp of the General Staff and the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
And do you recall this order forbidding the use of masks from being issued?
po, pak
Yes, I remember it, more or less. At the time, some people were appearing with masks, therefore this order was issued to prevent use of masks in this period of time.
Were there complaints, or how did you become aware of the use of the masks?
To nga ankesat e cilat janë
These were complaints received from operational zones.
Can we please tender the document?
Any objection?
Your Honour, the witness has not confirmed that he had seen it at the time.
Objection is overruled. SPOE 00228820 is admitted.
Your Honor, the document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01414, and current classification is confidential.
Reclassify as public.
Thank you, it will be classified.
And we can move to SPOE P00225239. Do you recognize the stamp and signature on this document?
Po,
Yes, it's from the general staff with the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
And were you aware of this order being made for a certain percentage of goods to be reserved for the logistics department?
po, për
Yes, for the needs of the logistics of the general staff.
Tender the document, Your Honor.
Any objection? No objection heard. SPOE 00225239 is admitted and reclassified as public.
Thank you, Your Honor. The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01415 and it will be reclassified as public.
Thank you.
Now, can we please bring up P00631? Do you recognize this document and did you issue it?
po.
Yes, this is my document. It bears my signature and the stamp of the general staff.
What does it relate to?
Kjo urdhës ka të bëjë me
This ordinance relates to the beginning of the training of battalion commanders.
Where was the training held?
po, ky trajnim ose ky
This training course for battalion commanders, there were also other training courses held in the village of Nishor municipality of Soarek, which was the brigade 123rd or the operational zone of Pashtik.
And in the paragraph number 2, it says that Sali Vaseli was in charge of organizing and carrying out the training. Is that correct? Was he responsible for this training?
po, e saktë.
Yes, that's correct.
Were there participants from each of the operational zones?
Po, nga gjitha
Yes, from all the zones. We asked them to send the battalion commanders who did not have any commanding or military experience to be trained.
We can move, please, to P00630. Do you recognize what this document is and did you issue it?
Po.
Yes. This is my document with my signature and stamped by the General Staff stamp. Again, it's an ordinance issued for training course that communication officers had to undergo. We asked all the zones to send such officers for the training. I assigned the officer who in charge of this training course in this ordinance.
Where was this training held?
Njëjtë edhe ky
This training too was held in the village of Nishor as the one for the battalion commanders.
We can move, please, to SPOE 00226 Do you recognize what this is?
Po.
Yes. This document was issued by the commander of this training course. It bears his signature and it bears the stamp of the operational directorate. It contains a description, the evaluation of the officer who completed the training course in question, and he's given a mark and a description, an evaluation of the soldier or commander who underwent the training course.
You mentioned that it has the stamp of the operations directorate. When did the directorate start using stamps?
Po këto kemi filluar të përdorim
We started using these. We had the stamps in November or December. I had the stamp with me when I came from Albania. They were prepared beforehand. And we used these stamps. As I mentioned, this document indicates that the training course was organized and held by the operational directorate, and therefore it bears his stamp.
And did you have stamps for each of the different directorates with you when you came back in November?
Atëherë kemi pas grurin ka qenë shtabit drejtor.
We had the stamp of the staff, of the operational directorate, other directorates, zone commands.
So I'd like to tender this document, please.
Any objection to the document? None being heard, SPOE 00226-466 is admitted and reclassified as public.
The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01416 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Now, can we please bring up SPOE 00226675? And we're going to continue on the topic of communications for a little while. So we can go slowly just to the second and third page for the witness to see the full document. Do you recognize what this document is, and can you please explain it to the court?
This was prepared by the Communication Directorate. These documents were used including during the training course of the communication officers, but they were also sent for use in operational zones. This document explains one of the ways to proceed with the codes within the zones, the operational zones.
And are those codes for use during communications?
Yes, later on, after the completion of the training course of these officers who were sent by the zones, they use them.
So I'd like to tender the document, and it's just the first 3 pages of the range, please.
Any objection? None? SPOE 00226675, 3 pages, first 3 pages, I should say, is admitted, and is that to be public
Yes, it can be, thank you.
and is reclassified as public?
Your Honor, the pages with the ERN SPOE 00226675 to 226677, including corresponding English translation, will be assigned exhibit number P01417, and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned that it was prepared by the Communications Directorate. Did they work together with the Operations Directorate or on this type of material?
Yes.
Can we please bring up SPOE 00225-138? Do you recognize the stamps and signatures at the bottom of the page?
Yes. The stamp is of the Operational Directorate. The signatures are the first Musa Shari Communications Director, and the second one is Safet Sula's signature, his deputy, or the person in charge of the training course that had been held before for the communications officers.
Now, the document is titled Table of Contents for the Communications Plan. Can you please explain what that was?
This is a content of the documents that were prepared for communications. We can see clearly the sketch of the communication plan scheme, the table of decoding, the radio communication plan, at from general staff local zones, the radio communication plan and the operational zones, the identification table, in order to identify persons using this, the communications operator, the changing plan of communications operator, changing plan of the identification table, and the communication schedule. These are all separate documents, 9 different sub-documents that are prepared by communications officers to use them in their zones, brigades, or even in the staff.
I'd like to tender this document, Your Honour.
Any objection? None heard. SPOE 002251138 is admitted and reclassified as public.
The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01418 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you.
And the document we're just looking at relates to the Pastric operational zone. I'd like to call up SPOE 00225-762. This appears to be the same type of document, but for Ducagini. So, as you just explained, is it correct that there was a package of these documents for each zone?
Yes, this was during the training course. With the completion of the training course, the officers went back to their zones with the documents and implemented their content.
I would like to tender this one as well, please. It can be public.
Any objection? None heard. SPOE 00225-762 is admitted and reclassified as public.
Your Honor, the document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01419 and it will be reclassified as public.
Thank you.
Now, you had described a couple of the underlying documents that were contained in these packages of materials, so I'd like to just look at one or two of those. Can we please bring up SPOE 00225140? Do you recognize the seal or stamp at the bottom of the page, and can you explain what this document is?
Yes, at the bottom of the page we have the stamp of the operational director. This document further explains the coding in the Pastric operational zone, then within brigades and battalions, and other accompanying units who are provided with the codes, communication codes.
I'd like to tender this document, Your Honour.
Any objection? None is heard. SPOE 002254140 is admitted and reclassified as public.
The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01420. It will be reclassified to public. Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honors, for the record, we preserve our position on the document seized from Jakub Krasniqi.
Can we please call up document SPOE 00225143? Do you recognize the signature and stamp at the bottom?
Po.
Yes. The stamp is of the Operational Directorate, signed by Officer Musa Sharif from the Communications Directorate.
And under the heading Career Network Connection, we can see that it indicates a twice monthly schedule for operational zone couriers to come to the General Staff Operations Directorate. Do you recall there being this type of regular schedule in place?
Po, është edhe
Yes, this was the timetable provided. Now implementation depended on the situation on the ground. When there were offensives, it was less than that. It could be meetings once a month or twice a month. But yes, this was the timetable in normal and in normal circumstances and in the absence of fighting. In particular, with zones that were further, we did not have direct contact and we needed couriers to meet.
And could the couriers also come at other times depending on the needs?
po.
Yes, they could come at other times, depending on the situation, the time, and the requests.
What kind of communications would be exchanged by courier in this way?
Po komunikimet me zakonisht të raporteve.
Usually this was related to reporting on the situation on the said territory, or submitting a request made by the staff for other needs. So these were sent through the courier in writing, meaning reports, requests, or needs in the zone.
We'll tender this document as well, please, Your Honor.
Any objection? None heard. SPOE 002254143 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Your Honor, the document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01421 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
And we'll just look at one more of these type of documents. It's SPOE 00225142. So do you recognize the stamp, and then can you please explain what the document is?
Kjo
The stamp is of the Operations Directorate. The document is a key of communication codes through radio or phone when you discuss various situations. You have the codes on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side you have their meaning.
And who would have used these codes? Were they disseminated to the zones?
këto janë kode bisedimit të cilat
These are communication codes prepared by the officers and given to communications officers so that they can have them for use in communication in their respective zone.
We tender the document as well, please.
Any objection? None? SPOE 00225-142 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
The document and its corresponding English translation will receive exhibit number P01422 and it will be reclassified to public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we please call up SPOE 00226491? Do you recognize what this is? And do you recall how these instructions were obtained or prepared?
këto janë
These are instructions on how to use satellite phones. They were translated from where they were purchased. When they were purchased together with a translation on how to use the satellite phone.
Can we go to the last page, please? And down at the bottom of the page, there are some initials there, SS and FE. Do you recognize or can you identify whose those initials would be?
sa më kujtohet
As far as I remember, these translated documents, when we received them, SS would be Sami Seida, the communications officer in the Pastrik operational zone.
And I'd like to tender this document, Your Honor.
Any objection? None? SPOE 00226-491 is admitted. Is this to be reclassified also?
Yes, it can be.
Reclassified as public.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I may read the full ERN, this document has 4 pages. SPOE 00226491-2, SPOE 00226494, and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01423, and it will be reclassified to public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we please call up P00628? Do you recognize this order and did you issue it?
På.
Yes. It's the General Staff's stamp and my signature.
Paragraph 2 provides phone numbers for reporting urgent matters. Can you tell us whose those numbers were, please, starting with the first one that ends 4112?
På.
Yes. These numbers, the first one is my number as Chief of Staff, the number of my satellite phone. The second is of the operations officer who received the report. And the third is of the Deputy Commander of the General Staff, his phone number, in case the person on the first and second phone numbers could not be reached, then the person on the third phone number would be contacted.
And the Deputy Commander is Jakub Krasniqi, is that correct?
På telefonnummer.
Yes, this is his phone number.
Where were these phones located?
Ta telefonon ndodheshin
These phones were located in Divjak with us. The first one was in my office, the second one was in the operations director, that is in the operations room, and the third one was with Jakub Krasniqi in his office.
So we can move, please, to SPOE 00225253.
I rise simply to make a request, which is that when the documents are on the screen, whether or not it's intended to elicit the date in testimony, it is important for us to be able to see the date, so that as we go through we know the date of the documents. I mean, this, for example, is the 12th of January, but we've had to go back to the system to find the date because it's not displaying.
You want to see the date on the document?
Yes, I mean, the dates of these documents are important because they're all, so far, January period.
The SBO will endeavor to show the dates on the documents as we go.
Do you recognize the stamp and signature on this document?
På.
Yes. It's the stamp of the General Staff and the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
Do you recall this order and what the purpose of it was?
På.
Yes, I recall this order. Its purpose was that the phone numbers at the disposal of commanders of the zones to be sent to us so that we can communicate and identify them.
So I tender this document, please, and it can be public.
Any objection? None heard. SPOE 00225253 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Your Honor, the document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01424, and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
I'm sorry to rise again, but for the sake of the record and ease of following the record in due course, might I request to the bench that the date of the document be put on record as we move forward? Because the document is there, but as we read the transcript, it's quite important to note the dates. And this one, again, we see is the 3rd of January. There's no reason why the date shouldn't be elicited in testimony, I wouldn't have thought. It wouldn't take a moment. And then the record is clear. I mean, obviously, we can all go back.
No, I'm happy to state the date, but obviously it's on the
It's on
document,
the
and it's clear what the document that's being
Well,
referred to is.
let's do our best to name it. I don't have an objection to that.
So can we please bring up, sorry, the date of this one is the 3rd of January. Can we please bring up, has that one been admitted? Yes.
Yeah, no, I don't believe it has. Oh, yes, it has.
Yes, it
01424. Yeah, 1424.
Can we please bring up IT 0587 4D 00039? This document is dated the 10th of January. Who has it been signed by?
This document is signed by the Deputy Commander of Pashtric Operational Zone, Suleiman Kolchaku.
And do you recognize the content as implementing the prior order that we just looked at?
Yes.
I tender the document and it can be public.
I'm sorry, any objection? All right, thank you. IT 05874D00039 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Thank you, Your Honor. The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01425, and it will be reclassified as public.
Thank you.
Can we please call up SPOE 00225065? And this one, I think it's better if it's not broadcast just because it's a list of numbers and I don't know if any of them are still operational. It's a little bit hard to read in the Albanian, so we might need to zoom in. At line 33, over on the right-hand side of the page, we see the name Bislam in handwriting. Do you see that?
Yes.
And the phone number on that row, if we go up to the top of the document so that we can see the column headings, the phone number on that is the number ending 4112 that you've just described as being your number?
Po?
Yes.
Of that same row, row 33, it indicates that this phone became operational in August 1998. Were you using the phone at that time?
Jo, nuk.
No, I wasn't. Because I didn't have it at the time.
Do you?
Telefonin e kom.
I received the phone when I entered Kosovo in November. I brought it from Albania, from Tirana. It was issued to me in Tirana. It could have been in use or function, this number, in August, but not inside Kosovo, in Tirana.
Now, if we could go up to the top, please, and look at the column headings. There's one entitled Card Number. Can you explain what that refers to, please?
Mund kon kartelet të
It could be the codes of the satellite phones and their numbers.
There's also a column entitled Fax. Where was the fax machine that you had?
po fakset kanë
The fax machines, some had those who were outside Kosovo, but also those who were inside Kosovo. I had one in my office in the operations room. I don't know who else had them.
Now, when you moved to Albania in April 99, did you keep these phone and fax numbers or did you hand them over to someone?
Jo, këto telefone dhe fakset gjitha
I handed them over all the phones and fax machines.
Who did you hand them over to?
ja kom dërgjuar
When I handed over my duty to Agim Ceku, I handed him over my satellite phone, whereas the phone of the operations directorate remained there.
I'd like to tender this document, please.
Mr. President, I have no objection, and I will just add that these numbers could not possibly be in service anymore in Kosovo because the telephone system has been changed, so I think it can be public.
No other objection being heard. SPOE 00225065 is admitted. What is the SPO's position on publication or on public or confidential?
I don't have sufficient information to say anything further than what I've said.
We'll make it public.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just for the record, the Albanian version of document has 2 pages, while English translation has 1. The ERN is SPOE 00225-065 to SPOE 00225-066. And its English translation will receive exhibit number P01426, and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can we please call up SPOE 00226766? Do you see yourself referred to in the list of names?
Po.
Yes.
What name are you referred to under?
Përdoret pseudonimi.
The pseudonym is used. Blitz.
Who referred to you by that pseudonym?
Vetëm Recep Selimi.
Only Recep Selimi.
We can see there are some other nicknames or short names in the column going down on the left. Can you please identify any of those that you're familiar with?
Nuk e di këto 10.
I don't know. 10, 1, or 1, 101. Çeliku, yes, I do know. It's Fatmir Limaj. Remi is Rustem Mustafa. Gazetari. Now I can't remember, but I think it was Shukri Buya.
Këto shka e di. Pak shumë.
These are the ones more or less that I know.
Do you know who David is referring to, or David?
David, po.
David was the pseudonym of Daud Haradinaj.
Do you know Mayupi, or Majupi?
Da Ibrahimi.
Lahi Ibrahimaj.
Do you know Topi or Topi?
Po, Topi Haxhi.
Haji Shala is Topi.
Plaku?
Plakun e kemi thënë të gjithë.
We called Jeladin Plaku, or Jeladin Gashi, we refer to him with Plaku.
Do you know who Besnik would be referring to?
Shobasho si besnik mund të mund.
Maybe it refers to Besnik Ndreshaj, who was a courier at the staff. It could be somebody else as well.
Do you know Daya Ivogel?
Da e vogël.
Husni Sylla was referred to as Daya I Vogel.
And then Daya?
Kurse Daja Azem.
Daya is Azem Sylla.
Can we go over to the second page, please? Can you tell what type of telephone numbers those are?
Po çoj numrat e telefonit.
As I can see, these are Albanian numbers from Albania, 00355. They are Albanian phone numbers. I think it's Ramiz's phone, and Sabit Gates's number is not an Albanian number. It's of a different state or country.
I tender this document, please.
Any objection? No objection is heard. SPOE 00226766. Both pages will be admitted and reclassified as public.
Your Honor, the document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01427 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you.
So going back to the chronology, we were in January 99. I'd like to call up SPOE 00225245. Do you recognize the stamp and signature?
Yes, the stamp is of the General Staff and the signature is of Jakub Krasniqi.
Do you remember this meeting of zone commanders being convened?
Më vonë po. Më me të 20.
It was convened later on.
Is it correct that Jakub Krasniqi would sometimes also convene these meetings with zone commanders?
Jo, gjeri është që ftesën, thjet të gjithë komandë.
You send the invitation to all commanders to attend, and I would attend those meetings as part of the staff.
And we can see here that it's Jakub Krasniqi who's sending the invitation. Is it right that he would sometimes be the one who would convene these meetings or send the invitations to the zone commanders?
Po,
Ernest,
ftesën.
Yes.
And one of it has already been answered by the witness.
Overruled. Go ahead.
So the date of this document is the 15th of January 99, and I'd like to tender it, please.
Any objection? None? SPOE 00225245 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
It will receive exhibit number P01428 and it will be reclassified as public together with English translation. Thank you.
Now we can see some of the topics that were identified for the discussion. One of them was an analysis of the 1-year war, and then there were organizational issues. Can we please call up U0091983? So if we look at the topics here, it would seem to be responsive to the order that we just looked at. And I'd like to go through some of the content. So if we can go to page 1985, please. And in the last paragraph under the heading Leadership and Command, it notes that the Dukagjini zone still didn't have anyone occupying the post of Chief of Staff. Was that correct at the time?
Po, just det.
Yes, that's correct.
We can go, please, to pages 1988 and then over to 89. Witness, you'll see in this section that a report is being given on the status of different brigades. So if you could have a look at those sections, and then I'll ask you if it reflects your understanding of the status of brigades in Dukagjini at that time.
Again, if the witness is being asked about the state at that time, we do need to know from the witness or counsel what the time is, what date it is.
This is responsive to the order that we saw, which was dated the 15th of January.
Thank you.
Yes, so down at the page under the heading Our Forces, if you could take a look at that, and then it goes over to the top of the next page. Are you ready to move to the next page?
Po.
Yes.
You can let me know when you're ready, and the question was just whether this reflects your understanding of the status of the brigades.
Yes.
Do you remember receiving this information at the time?
Në raporti. Po është raporti I komandit.
This is the report of the zone commander coming from his zone, explaining the situation in the zone and the activities of their units at the time.
And does the information reflect, what's in this report reflect the information that you had at the time relating to Dukagjini?
Në raportet kur kemi marrë në atë kohë.
When we received reports at the time, from what I can remember, this was not detailed. We had some information, but not everything, from what I can remember.
Your Honor, I'd like to tender this document, please.
Any objection? U0091983 is admitted. The range up to 1989, correct?
I believe it's up to 1990.
So U0091990 is the end of the document. It's admitted. Reclassify it as public.
If I can just seek a clarification with regards to the range, because we show pages with year-end 1985, 1988, and 1989. So if the council can please repeat the range, the full range that needs to be admitted.
U0091983 to U0091990.
So entire document needs to be.
That's correct.
I
Thank
see.
you.
I understand. Thank you. The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01429, and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
And we can please go to P00617. And we'll please go to the last page to start with. Do you recognize your stamp and signature there?
Po, vula.
Yes, the stamp is of the general staff, and it is my signature.
Back to the first page, please. So this document is dated the 20th of January. Is this a report that you prepared?
Po, kjo është
Yes. This is a summary of the reports submitted by the zone commanders at the time.
And as indicated there, did you submit it to the Deputy Commander, Jakub Kosnici?
po.
Yes.
Can we please go to P00647, the last page of the document? Now, this is dated the 20th of January, which is the same date as the meeting and the report that we just looked at. Can you please explain what this is and how or when it was created?
Po, këto
Yes. This is a list containing the stamps of the operational zones and the signatures of the operational zone commanders.
Was it created at that same meeting, as far as you remember, the meeting of the zone commanders on the 20th of January?
po, me da.
Yes, on the 20th of January.
And what was the purpose of taking each of these stamps and signatures?
Për të ditën cilat vula i kanë,
To know who had what stamps and to have their signatures, the commanders' signatures.
We can go, please, to SPOE 00227666 and stay on the first page. Now, this is dated the 21st of January, so the day after the meeting with the zone commanders. And we have some notes from general staff meeting. Did you attend this meeting?
Po.
Yes.
And is it correct that there was a briefing of what had been discussed during the meeting with the zone commanders?
Po.
Yes. Yes.
Now, we've notes which seem to reflect a further series of general staff meetings on the 25th of January, the 28th of January, the 1st of February, the 4th of February. Is it correct that the general staff was meeting frequently during this period?
Ka pas takimi i shtabit përgjithshëm ka mund të ndodhë më shpesh.
The meetings of the general staff could be more frequent depending on the situation at the time, but the commanders' meetings were not that frequent.
And during this specific time period, so the last week of January 99 and the first week of February, is it correct that the general staff was meeting relatively intensively?
Po, sipas kërkojë.
Yes, based on the needs and the requests at the time.
Can we please go to SPOE 00226468, and we'll want to go to page 476. So this is the 28th of January. Did you attend this meeting?
Jo.
No.
Do you know what the topic of appointment of KLA political group participating in the talks would relate to?
Jo, nuk më kujtohet.
No, I don't recall this.
Under topic 3, it said proposals by the Ducagini zone for brigade commanders. Do you remember Ducagini brigade commanders being appointed around this time?
Jo, nuk më.
No, I don't recall it.
I'd like to bring up SPOE 00225268. Do you recognize the stamp and signature here?
Po, ula është.
Yes, it's the stamp of the general staff and the signature of Jakub Krasniqi.
Do you recall these appointments having been made?
Nuk më kujtohet.
I don't recall them. The appointments could have been made because it is this is the part of the personnel directorate. Zone commanders would propose brigade commanders, and then they were appointed by the general staff. I don't remember now the exact time period or when this order was issued, but it can be seen that it is an order about the appointment of two commanders.
Your Honor, I tender this document.
Any objection?
No objection, but might the record show it's dated 4th of
Yeah.
February 1999.
Correct. No objections being heard. SPOE 00225268 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Thank you, Your Honor. The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01430, and it will be reclassified as public.
Thank you.
Can we please call up P00182? And go to page 397 initially. So this is the 6th of February. Is it correct that you attended this meeting as is recorded here?
Për datën nuk kemi sigurt.
I am not certain of the date. It says zone commanders. Where was this held, in Divjak or somewhere else?
And it might assist you in remembering. Can we go to page 400? So we might want to go back one page just to show the witness that this is Remy speaking, but then we'll come back to this page. He proposes you as General Commander. Do you recall that?
Po,
Yes. This meeting was held in Drenice.
And we'll go please to page 402. So this is Sula. Who does that refer to?
Syla e referon komandantin.
Sula is the Operational Zone Commander Suleiman Selimi at the time.
And he's recorded as saying that the appointments made at the General Staff are of concern. And then he names Sokol Bashota and Jakub Krasniqi. Why was Sokol Bashota not considered to be up to the job of Deputy Commander, as is referenced here?
Nuk e di.
I don't know. This is the second meeting, though. When speaking about the commander's matter, there was another meeting held on the same day before this one. Now, with respect to what was said, I don't know. And it is precisely for this reason I asked the zones why they would not accept Sokol Bashota as a deputy. And the first meeting was interrupted the moment Sokol Bashota came into the meeting. However, I did not receive any concrete answer from them as to why they were dissatisfied with his work. So they expressed their opinions.
So I'd like to refer to prep note 2, and it's row 124. And I'll just read to you what you said last week. You said, the witness does not recall who specifically was raising the concerns, but confirms that the complaints were directed primarily towards the two deputy commanders. In particular, the zone commanders wanted Bashota to be more active and wanted to know what he was doing. Some of the organizational aspects were under his responsibility. Does that reflect your understanding?
I'm going to object, Mr. President. We were talking about notes from a meeting on February 6th, and now she's taking him to a discussion that was about a meeting on the 21st of January. And I don't think that's proper impeachment.
Your Honors, I also ask that the whole paragraph be read to the witness.
Go ahead, ma'am.
The whole paragraph from the preparation note? So the witness said he was present at this meeting, and the document reflects his memory about what happened at the meeting. The witness wrote a report based on the minutes of the meeting, handed it over to the deputy commander, and it was not discussed further. The witness does not recall who specifically was raising the concerns, but confirms that the complaints were directed primarily towards the two deputy commanders. In particular, the zone commanders wanted Bashota to be more active and wanted to know what he was doing. Some of the organizational aspects were under his responsibility. They also wanted to understand Krasniqi's role as deputy. Is that sufficient? So the portion that I just read to you, does that reflect your understanding of the issues that were being raised? They wanted Sokol Bashota to be more active, and they wanted to know what he was doing, and they wanted to understand Jakub Krasniqi's role as deputy.
This was my understanding. But this meeting ended differently because the general commander was replaced.
So we can turn over the page, please, to 403. And this is still recording under the heading of Suleiman Salimi. And it says, Jakub Krasniqi, for all the respect he commands, is not the right man for the post of deputy commander. Do you recall that having been raised by the zone commanders?
Well,
Yes.
Can we go, please, to page 406? Now, there's some praise here for those who had fought or contributed from the beginning. Do you remember that being part of the discussion?
Paul?
Yes.
So I'd like to move, please, to 1D00033. And Your Honours, I might ask a slight indulgence with the time. I've 2 more documents to finish this topic.
Yes, go ahead.
And we'll go, please, to page 357. So this is the 13th of February. And we can see that the issue is discussed again. At the bottom of the page, you can see that Suleiman Salimi is nominated as commander. Do you recall that?
Po.
Yes.
And if we go to page 358, Remy is indicated as speaking. He supports that nomination, and he also specifies that the general staff as a whole has not been rejected, only certain individuals. Do you recall that? And is it consistent with what you understood the discussion to have been?
Po.
Yes. I remember this discussion.
We can go, please, to P00645. And we can stay on the first page to start. So these are notes from first the 26th. And then if we go over to the following page. At the top of the page, Regia is recorded as speaking, and he appears to be briefing on the discussions that had taken place with the zone commanders. Is that correct?
Po.
Yes.
Do you recall this type of briefing having been done?
On të shofim datën më njërë.
Can we see the date again?
It was the 26th of February.
Nuk e din këtë takim nuk kam qenë.
I don't know. I did not attend this meeting.
Can we go, please, to page 673? And maybe we need to go a page further in the Albanian. Yes, thank you. Can you explain what this relates to?
Po është lista e prosecutor.
This is a list. I don't know who prepared it with opinions or suggestions as to who should be the Prime Minister of the Provisional Government.
So it reflects a kind of a vote, is that the case?
Some kind of vote or opinion that every one of us gave at the time.
Had there been discussion before this vote occurred as to who the Prime Minister should be?
Not before. As a matter of fact, we knew that the group that was sent to Rambouillet, we asked for Thaçi to lead this group, and then obviously he would continue on as Prime Minister of the Provisional Government.
So you believed it was obvious that he would continue in that role before this vote took place, or these opinions were expressed?
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, yes.
Can we go please to SPOE 00227862? Did you attend this meeting?
I do not remember being present at this meeting. This is a meeting that was held after the return of the delegation from Rambouillet. I do not remember being present at that meeting.
Can we please go to the next page? So this is the 27th of February. And Jakub Krasniqi states there that he resigns from the post of Deputy Commander and that Sokol should do the same. Does this reflect your understanding of how the issue was resolved? Do you know, did Sokol Bashota and Jakub Krasniqi resign at this time from the Deputy Commander posts?
This is the meeting when we met with the delegation from Rambouillet. The delegation presented the work done at Rambouillet, and of course I remember this conversation and this proposal of Mr. Krasniqi. He proposed to resign from this position.
Is that what actually happened at that time?
I don't know, I cannot remember, but in fact, yes, because following this, Mr. Krasniqi went with a delegation to Rambouillet when the signing took place, and then he did not return to Kosovo, he remained in Albania.
So Fatmir, who I assume is Fatmir Limaj, is recorded as saying, I propose that we set up the government as soon as possible in order to minimize the problems within the KLA. Does that reflect your understanding that the focus by this stage had moved to the provisional government appointments?
Po, nga
Yes, from this moment on, this activity began with the proposals and appointments in the provisional government.
And Your Honour, we can break here. Thank you. No, Your
Is
Honour,
this,
I'm
I'm
not.
sorry, is this being tendered?
No, I'm not tendering anything at this time.
You are, nope. I think you are finished with us for today. Thank you for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. You may leave the room. Please, one other thing, do not discuss this case with anyone outside the courtroom. You are still under that obligation. Thank you very much.
po përmirë.
Thank you. It's clear.
Anything further from the prosecution today? Is there going to be another witness this afternoon or not?
No, we don't have anything further this afternoon.
right.
But Your Honour, on the final document, I apologise. I do actually wish to tender it. I'd been thinking of the one before, which was already admitted.
Any objection? No objection is heard. SPOE 00227-862 is admitted and is reclassified as public.
Your Honor, just for the record, the full ERN is SPOE 00227-862 to 227-863. The document and its English translation will receive exhibit number P01431 and it will be reclassified as public. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roberts, you had something you wanted to bring up?
Very briefly, Your Honour, if we could just move into private session for the protection of the witness.
Please take us into private session.
Your Honors, we are now in public session.
We're adjourned until tomorrow at 9 a.m.
All rise.